Peace to the planet, everybody. You know what it is. Bishop Chronicles, man. I'm sorry for the lack of content over the past few weeks. Your boy's gotten a cold. You can probably still hear it a little bit. I lost it, got better, then lost it. So now I'm back to being like I have some kind of head cold thing. It's not going away. So that's why I haven't been recording stuff. You know what I mean? Except Money Mondays. Money Mondays. We're still here. David Frazee is with us to continue the journey. How are you doing, man?
Sounds like I'm doing a little better than you are.
Buy a lot, my friend. Buy a lot.
Reminds me in the old Soviet Union, people get head colds and disappear to the Crimea.
I'm trying to tell you, let's be careful out there. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, first of all, I just want to say I'm really glad that we're doing this because not only have you been the only content on my Substack, I'm only really getting amazing feedback from it. Like very regularly, and that's whether people are sending me messages or calling me, or I'm just watching people, share, etc. what we're doing. So this is good. This week we're looking at a lot more of the nuts and bolts of how we move forward. So let's talk about a quick overview of what's up on this podcast and jump straight into it.
Yeah. So just to recap where we are, I'm sorry there's kind of a slow build here, but for many of you, this is the only time you're going to really sit down and learn about money. So I at least want to give you a comprehensive foundation. So we've gone over a lot of the bits and pieces. There's a few more to go today. I'm going to talk about the different kinds of accounts, some retirement accounts, some how to set things up so that laziness and habits actually are your friend as opposed to your enemy. And then next week, I'd love to start digging into where I think people wanted probably the whole thing to start in the first place, which is what do you do when you're in debt? And then after that, in the sessions after, we'll talk about building wealth, what you actually invest in within these accounts, and getting to a point where you're self-sufficient, and how you build a priority list based upon what your situation is. I mean, I had people do that analysis a few weeks ago about where are you today, but I didn't say where are we going to go yet. But there's just a little bit more plumbing we got to talk about first.
All right. So when it comes to habits, systems, and taxes, all of which I'm dealing with right now. I really have a good tax guy. He's helping me get through all my stuff, which is good. Because as shameful as it is to admit, this is my first time really handling it. My ex-wife used to handle my stuff, and then she didn't really handle my stuff. And so it's gotten worse. So this is good for me, right? This is good for me. This is like what maturing and adulting looks like in your world. But, as I was walking down the street, laughing at myself handling my taxes for the first time for real, I was like, why is it so hard to create good money systems? My parents, and God bless them, they're smart and they handle biz or whatever. I think I was too out to lunch for them. They were like, we're not even going to tell him because he's not even trying, which was accurate. But why do you think it is hard to create good money habits? Because I know a lot of people that don't have them.
Yeah, look, we have no good role models. We learn the wrong lessons, both from parents, our friends, popular culture. Everything is about getting rich quick as opposed to getting rich over time. All the things we've talked about through most of the last few weeks. I really want everyone here to break that cycle and pass down good knowledge and be the one person at the table of your friends that can tell people what to do. And I do want to spend some time also talking about habits specifically, maybe a little bit later in the podcast, because it's really hard to break bad habits and to create good habits. The good news is I'm going to show you a way to be lazy and make this work because, that way you don't have to do a lot of effort. You just do it once and it automates.
So, when we talk about money systems, a guy like me is starting from scratch. What does that even look like in your mind?
Yeah, think of it as plumbing.
For a fundamental guy.
Yeah. I'm going to make this as simple as I can. It's plumbing. There's different kinds of accounts. We're going to go through like a checking account, savings account, a brokerage account. I may not know what that means, retirement accounts. We want to coordinate them and make them work together. So I want you to set this up once, and we're going to get into what the plan looks like again in the next few weeks. This is just, again, the infrastructure so that money hits like your checking, it goes to savings, it goes to retirement, it goes to all the different things you want it to do. You're going to tell the money what to do, but you need to have these accounts coordinated and automated. So we really want to build a financial system with all the basics. I'm going to give you the bare minimum. Trust me, we're not going to overcomplicate this.
Okay, so what are the different kinds of accounts that I need or the average person?
Yeah, this is all we're going to go through, and this is really all you need. There's esoteric reasons why you might need different things, but for most people, you won't. Checking account, savings account, retirement accounts, which are tax optimized. We'll hold that thought. A taxable brokerage, which means it's outside of the retirement structure, and that's pretty much it. Honestly, there's within retirement, I'm including things like a health savings account, IRA, 401k. I mean, I'll talk about that in the back half of today, but that's all you really need. You don't need to overcomplicate this.
So then again, new guy here, first time caller or whatever. So does it mean like I'm opening the account and I'm putting the funds into it and then they go do stuff on their own? Or like, what do I need to do? Just put the money in and let it do what it does?
Yeah, well, you have to give it instructions in the account. This is actually a great question. So I may have mentioned this a few weeks ago, but I talked to someone who had put all this money over years into the retirement account, but it was left in cash. And so they were actually losing money to inflation. They missed all the run up of the stock market because you have to put it into the account and then you have to tell the account to buy things with it. Think about it this way. An account is just a bucket of cash. And unless you do something specific with that cash, it's going to stay in cash. So when you sign up for example, a 401k with your employer, which is a savings account, you're going to give it specific instructions by saying, buy these things. When you put it into a brokerage with Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard, you're going to actually buy something with it. This is really important, and it actually sounds so silly that I have to say it, but people make this mistake all the time. Putting money into the account is not the investment. You have to buy things within that account, and the account holds it for you.
Right. So that's what you're talking about as the beginning of the system. The money goes in and you tell it to do X, Y, or Z.
And if it's a checking account or savings account, cash is what it is. So you don't need to do anything special on that. You just have to set up the right kind of savings account. I'll talk about high yields in a little bit. But if you don't take any action, the money will sit in cash. And as I demonstrated, in our very first few sessions, cash goes down in value. That's not what you want.
So the difference between a retirement account and a regular account is that there's different tax things and your instructions. It's both. It's not one or the other.
Well, okay. So you can think you have accounts that hold investments. Some of them are tax restricted and optimized. Some of them are not restricted. And so let me give you an example. This is U.S. law, foreign nationals, apologies, but most countries have analogs that are similar to this. As a United States tax code, we want to give incentives to people to invest for their retirement. So for some accounts, you can put money away on a tax deferred basis, meaning I can deduct from my taxes, and I'll come back and tell you what that means a bit later, the amount that I put in. So I'm not taxed on it today. I'm taxed when it comes out later. So I also have restrictions often that I can't draw the money out until I'm 59 and a half or sometimes 55 years old. There's different rules for different things. So you basically, we're going to let you do this today and let it grow, but you can't touch it until you're like at a certain age. Now there are exceptions to all these. So we'll go through what those are later. But when you own a normal, say, brokerage, like I'm just going to take my cash that I've already paid my taxes on, and I want to go buy an index fund like the S&P 500 or target date index fund, you can buy and sell that anytime you want, totally fine. And you pay taxes on it in the meantime. So if you make a gain, you pay tax. If you make a loss, you can deduct it, but you can take it out whenever you want. So one way to think about it is this within the tax optimized regime, or is it out? How is it restricted? Are there penalties if I do things with it? And within a brokerage account, which a brokerage account is just an account with a brokerage where you can buy stocks or funds. It can be inside of a retirement account or outside. So you have you have both.
So, the truth is I'm already old. I'm at the point where I should be getting money that I never invested, but I didn't invest it, so I'm not getting it. And so let's talk about like the prioritization of retirement first.
Yeah. So what I would say is when you're on the default answer is that you should put as much money into retirement first? That answer varies widely based upon people's circumstances, what their goals are. And in some situations, when you're older, you may look at that differently. But I think in your case, you're going to want to start maximizing things. When I get to retirement accounts, the good news is there are a lot of incentives to have people put even more money to catch up when they're, like, say, over 50 and then eventually over 60. So there are ways you can put even more money than normal. But obviously, the best time to do this was 30 years ago. The second best time is today.
And that's why I'm here on Money Mondays with David Frazee from Demystifying Silicon Valley and Demystifying Wealth. You should go sign up. What are some of the key insights that you have for forming habits? Because again, starting from zero, other than not spend and plan to invest, I'm still kind of like, I mean, I'm not somebody that actually spends a lot, if I'm honest. Like, I've cut down. Like, I recognize just even a few years ago that I didn't use a lot of Netflix. I didn't use a lot of, you know what I mean? These things, like, I don't use them. So I don't have a lot of subscriptions. I'm not the type of person, like, I have a ride that I don't really, I pay a little bit, but not a lot compared to most. And then, like, I'm not buying shoes and frivolous things, and I'm not ruining my life with credit cards. So what are some of the habits that I can start?
Well, you're in great shape compared to most people, because most people have much worse financial habits. I mean, your habit needs to be fixed is not saving. Most people have the issue of they couldn't even think about saving because they just have no money. It goes right out the moment they have it. And, we often think about it. We can do a whole class on habits. I'll just say a few things here. We often think about habits as lack of motivation. Somehow we're failures. Motivation's kind of a myth. What you should really be thinking about are creating specific behaviors that are easy, that follow like a certain prompt, like when this happens, and celebrate. So give yourself like some room. One thing that I often suggest people do is, what are the actions you might take to achieve a goal you would like? Like, I would like to save more money, or I'd like to increase my earning power. I'd like to, whatever it is. And you can put it on note cards or Post-its or however you want to do it. But, make 20, 30 different suggestions of things you might do. Now,
I want to go to
rank
Japan,
them.
David. I want to go to Japan.
Okay. Well, we're going to rank them on a 2x2 grid. And you're going to say, what are the things that are high impact behaviors that will have a lot of effect? And is this something I would really do?
Right.
Is this something I would really do? And in the case of like a specific goal, like go to Japan, you also need to do a further thing, which is what are the previous steps I would need to do to get to that? Is it saving miles? Is it having money to travel? Is it having even a passport? For many Americans don't even have that.
Here's a quick question. This is super rando. So I just got a thing because I have a LLC, right? 64 blocks LLC. We teach meditation and jujitsu and chess. And I got a thing from American Express, and it was like, hey, you should sign up for an American Express card. Now, last week we just talked about how you got a lot of cool flyer miles and stuff like that with using flyer miles that you get from your use of a credit card. So I was like, oh, maybe this is the time for me to get one for my LLC. But then I was worried if I apply for it with my already horrific credit score, that it would probably not be something worth doing, or because I have an LLC, well, I get that card anyway, and then I just have to be extra responsible.
Well, this is a technical answer. Amex does look to your personal credit, so you may or may not get it. That's a question.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You guys are trying to set me up.
Yeah, Amex cards do have fees associated with them. The ones that have miles anyway. Typically, I don't know of one that doesn't. That gives you like a big bonus. If you're going to have a card, you need to pay it off in full every month. You need to use it for good purposes. You have to do math on whether the miles versus the fee is worth it. You'll probably hold it for like 2 years realistically, because people forget to cancel it. Right. So is that a math decision that makes sense? The bet, by the way, this is really deep, and we should get back to the savings. Yeah. But the best airline partners with Amex points are, like, if you're going to Japan specifically, is ANA Airlines, which is a Japanese carrier.
Airlines.
They're part of Star Alliance, like with Singapore and
Right, right,
Lufthansa.
right, right, right.
Their award chart is substantially better than, say, United. Like
Okay.
a business class flight to Tokyo round trip could be like, 100,000 miles, where on United it would be 375,000 each
Right.
way.
It would be a lot more.
So it'd be
Yeah.
crazy. So, or 400,000 total. I mean, it just depends. So you can get on the same plane on the same flight just by exploiting those award
And what was
charts.
the name of this one again? Say it.
ANA Airlines, All
A&A
Nippon.
Airlines.
Yeah.
Okay. Rock
And
and
JAL is also pretty good. That's a partner with.
Yeah, I know them. I know them. So then,
But you have to just do the math on it and say, am I going to use this right? Is this mathematically correct? Like, what is the ticket I'm actually getting?
but if my
versus-
credit is kind of bashed, should I even? Because I didn't want to apply because I'm like, sometimes I know when you apply, that lowers your score because you already got rejected.
Yeah, it'll ding you for a few months, and it comes back. Like when you have your hard credit pulled, like when people are saying, "Is it a good credit risk?"
Yeah.
It will lower your credit like a few points. That and the scheme of sins, it's not the biggest sin. It's like usually a 5 to 10 point ding, and it's temporary, so it's not going to last forever. But they do look at how much new credit you're applying for, which is ironic because they're trying to get you to use credit. So I
Right.
never understood
so,
that one.
So the thing that most people have told me to do, and tell me if this is accurate, is to get like a Capital One card, and then use that to kind of like get my proof of life back in the system, and then do something with the LLC card application.
It really just depends. I just sit down and do a spreadsheet for you and say,
He's
you know,
like, "These, we got-
I'm a
we got- we
spreadsheet
had to have
guy.
a
I'm like,
serious
does,
conversation."
if you're getting like, they had a bonus recently for 250,000 miles, and I'm usually able to get like 5 to 6 cents, a point. So that's
Right.
like a lot of money. That's over $10,000 worth of travel.
Right.
But for most people, that's not the way you want to do it. For most people, get a card that has no fee associated with it, that, has good consumer ratings, that, you can pay off every month and don't. But I wouldn't game the point system unless everything else is solid, because it's just
That's
too
cool.
easy.
No, that was just super random. I was just thinking about it. 'cause
It's just
I
too easy to
saw
let
some-
it slide when there's a shock to the system. Okay, this month I'll not pay it off. I'm gonna, because I got to prioritize something else. I mean, it's too easy.
Yeah,
when you're too close to the
fumble
edge,
ball
you
in
need
the end zone.
you need enough slack or surplus in your financial system before cards really make sense, because it's just
Too
the
easy.
temptation's too large.
Okay. So then back to this whole accounts thing. So, why is it important to set up my accounts? Like, can I do that later, or like, should I just do it now, even if I'm not really putting money and stuff into it?
I just set them up today, honestly. Like, while you're thinking about it, just make it like a bad project on a Sunday afternoon. Just set them up, make sure they're linked to each other.
And then what should I be looking for in my checking, and then what should I be looking for in my savings account? Because these are things that I don't understand all the time.
Sure. So one thing to understand about like the banking industry is the banking industry makes 70 billion. I didn't misspeak, billion with a B, in overdraft fees every year, mostly from consumers. Well, about half and half, consumers and business. And they also charge you fees on having the account. So it's $15 a month to have an account at one of the big banks. And so you don't, you want to avoid that stuff. So first of all, you want something which is FDIC insured. So after the Depression, one of the first pieces of legislation was to insure banks, to avoid runs on it. It's a Wonderful Life, and everyone's going to the bank to take their money out. Like, your deposits are insured. So make sure it's FDIC insured.
Especially in these times, my boy, because it's a rocky out there. You heard what I'm talking
you
about?
want a place, ease of use. Like, if you need a lot of cash, maybe a place where you can physically go or deposit things. For my kids use online banks because they don't care about that stuff. Low to zero fees, ability to get your cash easily. So you want to make sure that it has certain features, like you can automate your spending. You can have bill pay if you want that. Just something which is easy to use, no fees. You're not going to make interest on this. Like the checking account, I have to emphasize, is close to zero and effectively zero. So it's not to make money.
You need to. It's a fundamental. It's not like there's a high benefit. We're just making sure that our fundamentals are in order.
Yeah, this is the account where you pay like your credit cards, the mortgage, the rent, the insurance payments, scheduled payments. I put like a month, maybe 5 weeks of cash at the end of every month. So I don't think about it next month. I'm okay, this is everything that's going to come out there. I put not the minimum, but I put enough to cover what I have. And that's it, because I hate getting 0% interest. That's just awful. But again, do things that are easy to work with that meet your needs.
No, man, that's awesome. Now, let's get back to the taxes because I was talking to my homeboy, John, that's his real name. And I was like, hey, John, what should I do? He was like, handle your taxes and your debt. Like, that's the priority. So, for those that are in similar situations like me, where, again, like there's no Cayman Islands account. It's just, you know what I'm saying? I haven't been doing it because I haven't been doing it because post divorce, walking through the nuclear fallout, trying to get my life back together, it really wasn't a priority because my emotional state was the priority. But now that I've kind of settled and life is getting cool again, I'm into the taxes. John was like, make sure you jump onto your taxes. But for those that haven't, like, why is it important to think about the taxes for the average person who hasn't been?
Yeah. Let me hit one thing quickly and then we'll talk about taxes. Because I want to make sure we got this in. Savings accounts are a little different because you can make money on them. There's something called high yield savings accounts. So if you go to like a big bank like a Chase or Wells Fargo,
Yeah.
you'll get like basically 0.1% or effectively zero. There are banks that are reputable, that are easy to use, that give, I think, so this is being taped in early 2026. The rates are about 3.3 to 4%. They were 5% like a year ago. They're all over the place, but it keeps ahead of inflation, or at least it keeps you flat. So
what number should I not accept? If I go, I want a high yield, and then someone has a number, like, am I saying I don't want what?
well, it varies. So go to NerdWallet or Bankrate.
Okay.
I like NerdWallet. They get paid a little bit on commissions. That's how they make their
Yeah,
money.
you told me about them
But they're
before,
fairly an honest
NerdWallet.
broker. Like I haven't seen something
Okay.
that I thought was offensive in the advice they gave. Like right now my kids are using like Schwab checking because they don't care about in-person banking. And then for high yield savings accounts, there's Ally Bank, Capital One, 360, SoFi, American Express, Goldman Sachs, Marcus by Goldman. There's different things out there. You want to not just pick the highest rate because sometimes they're teaser rates that go back down, but who has good customer service, good reviews, who's easy to deal with, who can you move money around without penalties. Sometimes they ding you if you move money more than 2 or 3 times. So you're going to have your checking account, your savings account. They can be at the same place. It's easier if they are. And then you're going to set up these other accounts. But let's talk about the taxes for a second, because I really think people don't think about taxes correctly. Like I have a whole set of lessons I talk about in my classes about just like basic things you should think about in taxes, but realize tax code is an incentive set. It's an incentive set. It's saying we want to encourage you to do certain things. So when people talk about loopholes, like there's somehow people overlooked the fact that the rich get taxed this particular way. No, they didn't. They have better lobbyists. I mean, it's an incentive set. That's something that was a policy choice that is deliberate. You may not agree with it. And if you don't agree with it, register, vote, run for office yourself.
All the fundamental American liberties that we are endowed with.
Yeah, but it's deliberate. It is deliberate, and it aggressively favors investors and business owners, which I've said before. The other thing about taxes is, I said this before on this program, it doesn't matter what you make, it matters what you take home. So if I give you $1 million and you get to keep all of it, that's better than 1.5 million where half of it's taxed, right? What you end up with. So you need to start thinking about what is my best net tax, meaning after all the taxes are taken out, what do I end up with the most money? And a lot of the games we're going to be playing in the strategy have to do with that kind of juggling. I'm betting I'm going to have a lower tax rate at retirement than today, so I'd rather not pay taxes today, or the opposite. Or, I'd rather do this fund because I think that net of taxes is going to be better for me because it's a capital gains rate. So I haven't talked about what that is yet, but taxes are everything. Okay. If you don't understand that, you're not going to understand what you're taking home.
So the other thing, this is crucial for me, is, because I've gone through some of the classes on demystifying Silicon Valley, demystifying wealth, and they're really easy for pretty much everybody to get, but I am not the smartest guy in the group. And so, you talk about 7 important tax lessons, and we kind of go through them. I remember that the first one is taxes are progressive, but like sometimes because of my own lack of clarity, like I don't I don't know what that means.
Yeah, no, I'll give you an example here in a few because I want to go through the first few lessons and break it down. So I literally had someone attend a class and they said, I was offered a raise at my job, but I turned it down because it'd be taxed at a higher rate. I'm like, what?
Nah, dude, I would have took the money, broski.
No, but here's what's wrong about it. The way the tax codes work, when I say it's progressive, like, so say you're single from zero to $12,400 of taxable income, hold what that means, because or adjusted gross incomes, I should say. You pay 10%. For every dollar above that, 12,401 to 50,400, that's at 12%. So you're only paying 10% on the first, then 12, and then 22% on 50,401 to 105,700. So you're not retroactively paying, say, 22% on everything. You're just paying that on the marginal extra money. You always want to make more money. There's no world where you don't.
Okay. So then, like,
well, actually, that's not, there may be edge cases about eligibility for certain things we'll get to, but in the abstract, it doesn't increase your tax on all the money, just on the incremental dollars.
So then, like, the other day, I was talking with my friend, and he was like, hey, make sure, because you're being more responsible about handling your taxes, that you deduct what you're paying to your tax companies and tax preparers, because that's part of it. Like,
yep.
You want to be deducting that. Is that like,
yeah,
talking about deductions?
Yeah, there are deductions and there are credits. And so let me talk about the difference, because I have friends that they open their small business. And they're like, oh, this is deductible. This is deductible. Like they just spend like a drunken sailor because it's deductible. But let's say an example. Let's say you're paying on every extra dollar, like 22%. A deduction lowers the amount taxed. So for every dollar you're spending, you can deduct, you're basically getting 78. You're getting 22 cents back, but you're still paying 78 cents. Or I'm sorry, I didn't phrase that correctly. If it reduces your taxable income by $1, it reduces your taxes by 22 cents, but you're still out the 78. Like if it's a dumb thing to spend, don't spend it.
No, I got you.
And a credit is
that. That's the one credit I do give myself, is I don't spend recklessly, like at all.
Yeah,
like,
and a credit's different because it's like, here's cash from the treasury. So the earned income tax credit is the biggest one in the US, but most people don't use it. So if you're like the working poor or the lower middle class and you have kids, you can get money directly back. I mean, this was part of the Clinton era welfare reform, that we didn't want to punish people who actually work jobs, even though they made starvation wages. And so the government will actually give you cash. And there are other credits in the code like that. By the way, there's a lot. You can itemize your deductions by saying, here's what I gave to charity. Here's what I paid in home interest mortgage. Here's, you can do all of that personally, or you can take what's called the standard deduction. So the standard deduction says, don't bother. It's $16,100 if you're single, or it's $32,200 if you're married filing jointly. And there's different for head of household. So you just take that off your income. So if you made $100,000 and you're single, the government says, your standard deduction says you made like $83,900. So that's your new address. That's what we're going to really end up taxing you on, not the full 100.
Okay.
And by the way, business deductions are different, because from a business perspective, you want to be, there's no standard deduction. You have to itemize everything. Right. It has to be in certain categories that are legitimate business expenses, like travel, mileage, office expenses.
Flight. Yeah.
And you have to document the purpose and keep those records.
Meals while traveling and whatnot, probably, or whatever.
And some of that's only 50% deductible, by the way, like travel, entertainment. I mean, we did something different right after COVID to get people to go back to restaurants, but it's usually 50% travel, entertainment. Yeah.
Now, one of the things you talked about was deductions for retirement accounts. So how does that work?
Yeah, so money, this is what I said earlier, like you're not taxed on it today. So if you make $100,000 and you contribute the maximum $24,500 to your 401k, that reduces your taxable income. So you're not making 100, you're making 100 minus 24 and a half, so you're making 75,500. And then you got your standard deduction on top of that. So it just takes the income out of what's taxed today. Now you will pay taxes later on that money when you take it out when you're 65, but you should be at a lower tax rate ideally at that point. So it's
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, so some things are not. By the way, that's different if it's a Roth IRA, which I've not talked about yet, and
Right.
let's save that for a bit later because Roth is
We'll
one of the
say
best
that.
deals. But you pay that in post-tax dollars, meaning you don't deduct the amount, but then when you take it out, it's tax-free. Like you don't even pay taxes on it, which is why it's crazy. It's one of the best deals out there.
One of the compliments I got on a lot of the stuff that you talked about in your earlier ones was about people not understanding uh, capital gains, right? And
Yeah.
and how that works. Like he was like, hey man, he's like that. He's like when he started saying that, I knew this guy was on. He really knew what he was talking about. Now, can you talk about how capital gains are taxed? Because I know you have a class on that, and I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, well, let's just talk about I said, who has better lobbyists? And this has been around for over a century, by the way. There have been, through much of US history, different tax rates on money earned versus money invested and returns on investment. So for most things, we call it ordinary income. So wages, self-employment, if you win like the lottery, most things, they're just ordinary income. Like you pay, on the charts, it starts at 10%, 12%, 22%, goes up to 37%. And in some years it's 39.6, but 37 as we tape this today. Please check those rates when you're watching this because this does change. Capital gains rates, however, is the appreciation on the asset. So if I buy $1,000 of Apple computers and then sell it at $3,000, my capital gain is $2,000. I'm going to pay, as long as I hold it for more than 1 year, hold that more than 1 year, because short-term capital gains is the same as regular income, so it doesn't matter. If I'm single, for the first $49,450 I make in a year, I pay 0% taxes on it. And if I'm married, it's up to like 90, it's almost like 100,000, just short of it, like 99 and change.
Okay.
And then I pay 15% on the spread if I'm single between 49,451 and 545,000. So like the next like $500,000 basically, I'm paying only 15%. And then I pay 20% for everything thereafter. So I'm taxed at 0, 15, and 20 as opposed to up to 37. It's like half. And think about this differently. If you're a married couple and you have capital gains from stuff in your brokerage account, you get $100,000 every year tax-free by selling that stuff off because that capital gains is not taxable. Well, it is taxable. It's just a zero rate. So
I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I misspoke technically, but it's effectively the same. By the way, just to be fair, there's a 3.8% tax for people who make more than $200,000 a year to help fund the Affordable Care Act. But that goes on here. So maybe some people would say it's 23.8%, not 20%, but either event, it is a lot less than ordinary income. So if you believe you are being screwed by working, you are. Warren Buffett says, I don't know why I pay a lower tax rate than my secretary makes because she works. It makes sense
Right.
only if you believe that this is the correct policy incentive. And by the way, whether you believe it or not doesn't matter. It is. And the Internal Revenue Code doesn't care about your feelings. So I'm just telling you what it is. You do what you want with the information.
So, one of the things that I'm still grappling with mentally is this idea, because like one of the reasons I'm doing all this tax stuff is to get my refunds, and you have a whole lesson on like refunds are usually bad.
Yeah.
And everybody I know is like refunds are good. I was just talking with a guy who was talking about how his wife makes more than him, but then she got a refund and he really didn't, and he was kind of like, what the hell? Like, how does she make way more than me, but then can you explain this whole refund being bad concept?
Yeah, well, I say it to get people's attention, and I got your attention, so it worked. So having your money is a good thing. So let's start with that. A refund means you gave the government too much money and they're giving some of it back. So they got to hold it interest free for the last year. So the way in which tax compliance is historically very low through US history. Not that the income tax has been around that long. So one of the things the US government does is it has mandatory withholding. So you're going to prepay the taxes. When you get your paycheck as a worker, you have FICA, Social Security, all these things deducted. They're saying, this is what we think ADISA is going to owe. We're going to prorate it by every paycheck. Here you go, government. You don't even see it. At the end of the year, you were withheld maybe $20,000, and then later it is determined through your taxes you owed only 12. So you get $8,000 back, and you're like, yes, I've achieved life. Achievement unlocked.
Yes.
I'm at level 12 life or whatever. The problem is you just gave that $8,000 to the government for free. They didn't pay you interest. They didn't invest it. You weren't in the stock market. You weren't paying down your credit cards with it. You just gave it to somebody else for, I don't know what reason, because you didn't manage your withholdings. And so you really want to manage your taxes so that you are close to zero, because you can pretty much estimate. If some people don't have the luxury or ability to estimate what their taxes are going to be because they're in jobs that are fluctuating too much. But if you know what your taxes are roughly going to look like, you can download TurboTax, model it, give or take. Don't have too much withheld. That's your money. Now, let me give a counter viewpoint. Some people are benefited by having too much money withheld because if they had it, they'd squander it. And so getting it at once gives them a chance to at least invest or do something good with it. So it's forced savings. But if you're disciplined and do the right thing, you don't want that. You'd rather be
in order. There's no need. Right. I get it.
Even a high yield savings account, get your 4%. The government's giving you zero. I would that $8,000 you could have earned 4% last year. Why? It's a few $100. It's not the end of the world, but every bit adds up. A refund means you misestimated your taxes and didn't manage it. You just gave the government a free loan. That's your money.
So let me ask
you. They're not giving money from them. They're giving you your money back. That's what a refund is.
So then let's say I do get a refund of whatever. Should I just put that in the S&P 500?
Well, it depends on your plan. And that's that we're getting 1 or 2 weeks ahead. I know people are chomping at that bit. So if you are in high yield debt, that's going to be your first priority. That's the red zone. The next is you want to get your emergency fund. You want to start your Roth IRA. You want to take advantage of the employer match, and we'll tell you how to rank those. And then you're going to, down the road, you'll put money in your own brokerage and let that grow. The reason I say it depends on your goals is and your situation. If you don't have any high debt, you don't have to worry about that step. If you're trying to save for the wedding, that's going to divert money that otherwise would have gone into retirement.
No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, you're going to get married before you retire, maybe, hopefully. So,
very likely.
So you have to have it in something you can get access to quickly, and you want it to be relatively safe because you can't risk the market going down in 4 years.
And having issues.
Yeah.
So then the seventh lesson is thinking post-tax dollars. Is that what I was just thinking? Was that what I was doing, or not really?
Yeah. What is this net of taxes? That I'm obsessed with this question. What is this when all the taxes are done? So, and I'm a step ahead. That I don't want most people getting this complicated because you'll start to just feel overwhelmed and helpless, which is I'm also thinking, what do I expect my tax brackets will be at 60, 65, 70 versus today? What is over the course of my life, what is the optimal places to put money so that I maximize what I am ending up with and can spend myself? So for most people, the answer is max out your retirement funds because you're going to have a lower rate. But that's actually not the right answer for everybody. Some people, you may actually be advantaged by keeping some out of retirement or doing what's called a backdoor Roth. We're not going to talk about that here because it's too complicated, but you are trying to shift money to the right buckets. They're taxed different ways so that you end up with the most money at the end. For now, if you just follow the basic rules, it'll keep you out of 95% of the trouble. But when you get to a point in your life, which I hope you all do, where you're making significant amount of money, you really start to think about these questions.
Right, because then they start to really matter. They're not theory anymore.
Yeah, how do I get money to my kids in the most tax efficient way? How do I pass along real estate to them the most efficient way? How do I, deduct things today, or do I use it next year? Can I, do I put it in this account or that account, which is actually better when it's all done? And, $320 doesn't sound like that much money, but what if it's $320,000 is the difference? Then it becomes very important at that point.
No, it makes total sense. So then, before we close out, I always hear the phrase tax deferred, and I know you have a class about that. You teach a lot of stuff around that. What is that, and how does that help me, or how does that hurt me?
Yeah, so deferred, I just wanted to distinguish between two concepts because we talk about tax free and deferred taxes, and they're actually different. Some people use the terms interchangeably. So, to give an example, and I've said it before, if I don't pay money, if I don't pay taxes today on the $20,000 I put in my 401k, when that appreciates to $200,000 or $500,000 and I start spending it when I'm 65, I will pay taxes on that money then.
Yeah, I'm,
So
I'm
I'm
in trouble.
deferring, delaying when I'm going to pay those taxes. Some things are tax free. Like I've paid taxes on the money that I've earned. I'm putting money in a Roth IRA. When I take that out later, or high yields or health savings accounts, the same thing. When I take that money out later, I'm not paying tax on it, even on the appreciation. That really is tax free. So I just want to distinguish because many of these things people talk colloquially about, oh, you should put all the money into your retirement accounts because it's tax free. It's like that's not true. It's tax deferred. The Roth is
You're gonna
tax
pay it
free.
later.
Yeah. So the question is it taxed money or non-taxed money? And which would you rather use? So, and we should go through the different accounts here, like the IRA and the Roth and the 401k. But even within like a 401k now, you have the choice of saying, I would rather pay the taxes today at my current rate. So
So
the
you don't, yeah,
accumulation.
later you're not getting dinged heavy.
Yeah, so there's traditional 401ks and Roth 401ks, which didn't exist like not too long ago. That's a relatively new thing. So you really are trying to think about where am I most advantaged? Like, what am I going to be when I'm retired? What kind of income do I have? What are the different sources and how do I minimize that tax bill? Like, you can literally do the same series of investments, just move the boxes around, like what you're investing in. And in one case, you're paying 100,000 in taxes. In one case, it's close to zero.
All right.
You know,
Well, cool, man. I want to thank you for guiding me and the rest of the Bishop Chronicles extended family through this because I literally am really each week I'm getting better. I'm getting better, and I know that I'm getting better because I'm thinking about it more in random spaces. Like I said, like when I'm just walking down the street, when I finish having dinner, when I get the mail and I can see I can apply for this thing for for 64 blocks or whatever. So thank you guys. I just want to say to everybody who's listening, please go to Demystifying Silicon Valley. Please go visit Demystifying Wealth so that you can start to get these things. And the main thing I want you to understand, and the best thing is for me, is that there's too many hustlers out there. There's too many weirdos. There's too many financial predators, especially in these times. And I think that because they're everywhere and because so many people fall for them, it's important when the good guys show up with the right wisdom that we pay attention and follow those directions. You know what I mean? So like when my friend John said, hey, make sure you're handling your tax stuff and get your debt stuff. And I was like, yeah. So I waited until I started handling that. And, I've already known David for a long time, probably almost 15, 20 years. And I was like, I know so many dudes that are struggling, whether they're married or not, like how they're handling their money does deal with so much of their stress. It does deal with so much of how they see themselves. And it also deals with what they're actually able to do or not to do. So I really encourage you to go to Demystifying Wealth. Encourage you to go to Demystifying Silicon Valley and, go back and look at some of these other previous discussions, pair them with these past few episodes. And we got more coming. You know what I mean? We got more coming.
Yeah, and just so I've said it, I'm not in the slightest encouraging anyone not to pay taxes you legally owe, because that is a crime in your life for sure. But I'm saying you have choices that you can make legally and correctly. You can make 3 different choices, 4 choices, sometimes with the same money. And it will have an effect on your life that's very different based on taxes, which will be unique to your circumstance. And I'll talk about the default rules, but you are allowed to make those choices. The tax code gives you those options. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Like that, the rich do this all the time. They understand that this is an incentive system and they can pick curtain A or curtain B, and it's going to be one's a goat, one's a car, right? So you get to do that too if you understand those choices.
Cool, man. Thanks again. We'll see you next week. And as you can tell, everybody, I got a new camera, got the mic hooked up to the thing. It's better. It's not as cool as David set up, but it's better, right? It's not, industrial light and magic, but it's a little more light and it's a lot more magic on my end. So, Look for new podcasts dropping soon. And the paywall stuff is gonna start dropping too. Because now this is set up. So we'll see you guys soon. Please like, please share, please send this to men you know that are struggling with money issues. Send it to women you know who are struggling with money issues, right? Because this stuff matters. And I know you see the times are crazy. I know you see it. I know you feel it, right? And so rather than panicking, let's do some planning on Bishop Chronicles, Money Mondays, back to the Stoic stuff, and back to finding our better selves and moving forward together. All right? I'll see you guys soon.